Hey friends, my name is Dave Kading. Thank you for joining me for this episode. Today I'm joined by Dr. Amber Dunn. We're going to be speaking about changing and pivoting in your career on the OI show.
Here's the tough truth. For every 1 hour we spend with patients, we're stuck doing 2 hours of administrative work, charting, prior authorizations, inbox messaging. And it's not just us. Up to 70% of our team's time is spent on non-clinical work. This isn't why we got into healthcare, and patients feel it too. Many say that they no longer feel truly connected to their providers and the healthcare practices. I've been working with virtual partners for over 10 years, and I can tell you not all virtual staffing companies are created equal. When we found Team, we realized how much better this process could be. Now, we've been working with Team for the last 2 years, and they didn't just find us a name on a resume. They helped us choose the right person, trained them, gave us onboarding system, management tools, and support us to make our virtual team feel like they're really part of our office. Now, our virtual team handles documentation, prior authorizations, billing, patient phone calls, other patient communications, you name it. Our in office team has more energy. Our patients get more face to face time with both my office team as well as me as a provider. And I get to be the kind of doctor that I wanted to be in the first place. If you're ready for a virtual revolution in your office that actually works and you're looking for a partner that helps you do it right, visit hireteam.com. That's hire, HIRETEEM.com. Big thanks to Team for supporting this podcast. Visit hireteam.com. That's hire, HIRETEEM.com. And thank you to Team for supporting this podcast.
Well, thanks again for joining us. I am delighted to be joined by Dr. Dunn, and many of you have seen Dr. Dunn on other podcasts, but also on social media. She's been doing a lot of really cool things. And I've been a big fan of hers, fanboy off to the side. We've not really met in person. And so it was awesome when we were recently introduced to get to actually meet and chat with her. And I'm so excited. You've been somebody I've been wanting to have on the podcast, but I haven't got to meet you in person. I felt like that was a little awkward. So I'm glad that we actually connected and that you accepted my invitation to be on the OI show. Thank you.
Yes, very, very pleased to be here.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about you. You have a couple of different hats, and give me the 30-second journey to where you're sitting in Arizona versus not in the practice in Oregon, and just give us the short little journey that you have been on.
Yeah, short little journey. I did a residency, I opened a practice, and I was faculty member, living life in Oregon, loving it, part-time faculty, full-time clinician, and our life took a pivot. We decided my husband's family is, or his dad's getting a little older, and we wanted more for our children. We wanted them to be able to grow up with their cousins and the chaos of family all around. And he grew up in Arizona, and so we made the very complicated but very important decision to move our family to Arizona. And so we took a long time to figure it out, plan it out. And we moved to Arizona with the idea that I would still see patients in Oregon, but we transitioned from me being a full time doctor to three-quarter time, half time, and now I'm a quarter time. So I still see patients at least 1 week a month. So I fly back to Oregon and do that. And I did that for about a year. And then I had the most incredible opportunity arise to become an executive director for the association in Arizona. And it was something I never thought that I would be doing. It is not something I even considered. And here I am a year and a half into it and loving it. So I'm not teaching anymore. I mean, like I still do stuff. Like for instance, I'm doing an infancy event today for some students, which is great. So I do get to do a little teaching here and there, but I'm not a faculty member anymore, and I'm okay with it because that's just a different part of my career and a different part of my story for now.
Yeah, yeah. And there is an important difference. I was so excited. Many people know my story. I did a residency and I wanted to stay in my residency because I loved teaching, I loved doing research, and I loved seeing specialty patients. I did my residency at Pacific and Cornea Contact Lens. But now, as a practice owner, I can do research. I get to teach in my resident, but I also go out and lecture, to optometrists all over the world. And I get to see specialty patients because we grew it. And so you never know what God has planned for you later in life to do what you love to do. And I know you get to go out and teach and do some industry chatting and AOA chatting and some different things. So you're still teaching, it's just in a different way, right?
Yep, agree.
Yeah, very cool. So what I hear, and we've chatted about this, is these pivots that you've made during your career, and that's not a traditional route, I think, as we look at Generation X and older to make tons of pivots in your career. But that certainly is a direction that millennials and younger generations are, I think, more open to and are seeing happen in their professional life, is you don't have to be locked into one thing for the remainder. I mean, when the older generations than mine went to optometry school, it was going into practice, right? But now we've got all of these different avenues. So kind of talk through how you see that transitioning in, our generational approach.
Yeah, I love that question because, you know, change is hard. Let's face it, no matter what. But also there can be no growth without change. And so, you can take that because even if you have that, that's not saying even if you have the same career or the same practice for your whole life, you still are making small incremental changes within that practice. So
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say that if you do one thing that's not
No.
going to be successful, but I also want to stress that if you do make pivots in your career or you change, like bring things on or reduce certain things that you're doing, that doesn't mean you're a failure. I also think that you might start something and don't feel like you have to be locked into it because if you're not happy with the job that you've picked within optometry, don't settle. There's so many options out there. And just because I made a career change does not mean I was unhappy. It just was the best for our family. And I had to make my career fit in that. And I think that that's what's so cool about optometry is because you can, maybe you're you want to be more of a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home dad and you want to work maybe 1 or 2 nights a week or 1 or 2 days a week and then be primarily at home while you have young children. Our profession allows for that. And then when your kids are in school, if you decide you want to go to work full time, you can. If you want to own a practice, you can. Like there's just so many avenues out there and you can do multiple things at one time, or you can do just one thing. That's why I love our profession so much. And I feel like there's countless opportunities, and you'll never get bored because you can just continue to add or change if you decide that this isn't the right path for you. And yeah, so I am a firm believer of going to school, becoming an optometrist, and then the opportunities are endless.
I have a lot of reasons why I think you're wrong, and
Tell me.
I'd love to chat with you about that. But I want to pivot in this discussion just for a moment and say, why becoming an executive director? I have not heard of an optometrist being an executive director. So, what drove you in this direction? And for some people, they're not AOA members, so they don't know what an executive director is and like what you do. So, let's just talk about that for a second, and then I'm going to get back into some of these other things that I'm like. But Dr. Dunn.
There's actually 3 or maybe even 4 optometrists that are executive directors right now for AOA affiliates. So it's actually trending in that direction. And if you think about it, an executive director is helping lead, it's actually helping to help the leaders lead within each affiliate to raise all the tides. So we're trying to push the needle within our associations and we're trying to protect the profession as it stands, but then also advance the profession. And so, as the executive director, you are the staff member hired on by the affiliate and who helps navigate the volunteer board members. So, every affiliate, and I use the word affiliate because most of them are states, but then there's AFOS, which is an affiliate, and AOSA, which is an affiliate. Um, but their board is comprised of volunteers. So if it's AOSA, it's volunteer students. If it's affiliates, it's doctors who volunteer their time and they go through and they usually serve 10 or more years to help educate other members within their affiliate and talk with legislators and host meetings and fun events and continuing education. So as the executive director, you're a leader, but you're also in some affiliates you're in the background and some you're on the forefront. I was a leader on in Oregon. I went through the board and I was a part of that leadership. I was never, I worked with my executive director, but I didn't really know what she did and what he did because I had a couple during my tenure. Um, I was at an AOA volunteer meeting because I've served as an AOA volunteer since 2010. And I was at a volunteer meeting and I found out, because this was shortly after I had moved to Arizona, that the executive director here, who actually was an optometrist as well, he was not practicing for the time he was an ED, but he was retiring. And a handful of people were like, you should go for it. I'm like, I don't know the first thing about running an association. And then I started talking, and I put in a call to John Himes, which, if you don't know, he's the executive director for AOA. And not only did he suggest that I should absolutely do it, but he knew my name, which I didn't even know, like, that he knew who I was. But he really sat down and leaned into me and said, "You've got this, and AOA's got your back. So if there's things you don't know, come to us and we'll help you." And that's the coolest thing about AOA, is that they're not just a parent association, but they're actually truly have resources and um, resources, yeah, and help for us as member doctors, but also as affiliates. So I did a bunch of research and I actually attacked the job. I talked to my husband, I prayed about it. Like, it was very important for me to have that before I went forward. And then I went after it. I reached out to the association, I applied, I said, I want this. And here I am a year and a half later, and I am very happy with where I'm at, and I can see change being made in a positive way. And it makes me feel good because not seeing patients every day, I don't get to see those lives changed every day. But now I'm able to help doctors become better doctors, which then that disseminates out and then they can make change. And so it's even a more impactful way, in my opinion, of what I'm able to do. So
So this was a huge pivot for you in changing away from patient care. You moved to Arizona. There's probably something in mind around optometry, but then this opportunity presented itself and you've gone. What is like the top one thing that you've learned as an executive director that you didn't know as an involved AOA member, or that you've seen your impact being able to be substantial because of?
that's kind of a tricky and complicated question. I think the one thing I didn't know is truly how much an executive director does. Because as a board member, you think that you're doing all of these things, and I don't think you have a true appreciation of what your staff person does, because it is a lot, and it's a lot behind the scenes. Um, I know you didn't ask this question, but what it's taught me is how much I love to see leaders grow. I am a leader, but I want to be a behind the scenes leader now. I want to be able to lean in and teach other people how to become better leaders. So that is something that I've learned over the last year and a half that I absolutely love, is being able to do that. And then the thing that I've seen the most impact with is truly how important being a member is. I thought that that was important as a member and as a leader, but now that I'm seeing the staff side of things and I'm seeing all the emails in the background of all the things the different affiliate states are doing and how successful they are because their membership is involved, or because they have high numbers of members, or because their members are volunteering in the community. And I'm able to see all of that now because we have these email chains that I wasn't necessarily privy to as a practicing optometrist. So I think that that's really been key. And then also really seeing the insights of truly how much AOA, how much resources that they actually have and want to provide to each member and to each affiliate.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So back to this other thing is this seems like a very scary idea to change what I'm doing. And that's especially difficult when you're young in your career because you have all of this financial burden.
Yep.
And it's also very difficult later in your career when you're established in your finances and you want to move forward. So how do you go about like reconciling the financial burden of making a big change? Because you don't know
Yep.
if it's gonna be financially sound or not. It's
Yep.
easier maybe right away to go out and make these adjustments if you're living like a resident or a
Yep.
student, but how do you
I
work through that?
I totally get that, and the fear is real. I mean, we went from, my husband had to give up his career when we moved to Arizona because in order for us to make my travel schedule work, he had to become what we call a glorified stay-at-home dad. So, that has nothing to do with optometry, but we went from a two income family to a one income family. And that was very scary. So it took time and diligence and planning to be able to do that. But what our move to Arizona and our my career pivot was the biggest blessing we've ever had in our entire lives, and it was the best decision we've ever made. So, if you're going to make a change within your career, within optometry, if you're going to pivot to change to a different location or reduce the time you're working or change to a different mode of practice, in order to be successful, you've got to do planning. Now, even with the best planning, stuff can go awry. Like there's no guarantee for anything. So you really need to have a good network of doctors that you can talk to be like, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. Is this a silly pivot? Is this a good pivot? And then also think about, okay, if you're not going to maybe make as much money, how are you going to make up for that? Meaning, is that going to give you more quality time with your family? Is that going to give you more ability to volunteer or serve? And that's something that you feel like you've been missing in your life. Or is it going to open up an opportunity to maybe you're going to work part time, but that's because also you want to teach part time. So now instead of having one full time job, you have two part time jobs. And I think just managing that and not being reckless with the decision because making change is good, but if it's reckless, it's likely to have a reckless outcome. Like you just don't know. And again, even with all the planning in the world, like, I mean, I'm not joking. Our truck caught on fire on Sunday and we didn't expect that to
After
happen.
that.
Literally, my husband and son are in the car and it caught on fire. And thank goodness everybody's okay. But like things happen. It doesn't matter. You can be the best planner in the world and life is going to throw you lemons and you've got to figure out how to make lemonade and don't try to make orange juice. You just got to do that.
Yeah. I think, the more we talk to individuals who are in their 70s, 80s, and 90s, the more these changes in our 30s and 40s become important because when we're in our 80s and 90s, we're less interested in the amount of money that we made and more interested in the the things that we did and the way that we accomplished them or the outside of work things that were important to us. So maybe the family time. So maybe the quality of life is high because of the dollars that you're making, but poor because of your family life. Or maybe there's something different about I'm, doing comprehensive eye care and I'm doing you know, five eye exams an hour. And that's not why I went into this. I want to be able to spend more time with my patients. And so getting to the point where you're like, how do you get there is you gotta stand in the future and look backwards. And the more we talk to individuals who are older, the more we realize that now is the time, right? Now is the time to be thinking about where will I feel most fulfilled, not just financially, but also in what I'm accomplishing, either for my family or for the profession, or I want to be teaching, and where do my passions lie?
Yeah.
And I think the good thing uh, about the generational switches that we're seeing happening is seems to line up a little bit more with people's drive. Um,
Yeah.
in the younger Gen X and the millennial than I see happening in my older generation. And I think that's good. I think that
Mhm.
really helps us fulfill where we need to go and hopefully get us to that and being able to pivot even after, maybe it's going to change in 5 or 10 years. And that's okay. Right.
Mhm. It's also
Yeah.
scary because, if you're not financially stable or you still have all those loans to pay, it you know, it it does create a little bit of fear in that change to be like, I want to have this extra time and I don't want to work as much, but I have these bills to pay. And so I think it's important to look at those things because they're real. The money's not the debt is not going to just magically go away. Um, but if you work hard and you're doing what you love, like you just figure it out with good planning.
Yeah, that's so true. And, good planning financially is also something that we see shifting considerably. And I see a movement swinging back where there was a movement I particularly saw in in as I was graduating and probably for 5 or 10 years after me, where financial literacy went away. And now, due
Mhm.
to some great things like ODs on finance, Like we're not just talking about your practice, but we're talking about how do you place your money? Like where do you do that? ODs and finance has really been great in that arena,
Yes.
but that
Agree.
financial literacy that is helping us see and helps us make those decisions maybe a little bit better. And maybe there's something to the fact that if more money is going out than coming in, then maybe you need to change one of those things, right? And that
Yeah.
planning goes into it, right?
Sure.
You didn't move from Oregon to Arizona, changing from two incomes to one and buy a house that was twice as expensive, right? You just
Yep.
planned for it, right?
Yep. Make the plans. And I think you're making an important point here about like ODs on finance, for instance. Patients come to us because we're a specialist in the eye and they trust us with that. We go to school and we learn how to be great eye doctors. We don't go to school and learn how to be great business people or learn how to be necessarily financially savvy. That's not in our curriculum. So we have to have the wherewithal to reach out to a specialist. If you haven't taken the classes or you don't have someone in your life that knows how to do that, just like patients come to us as our specialty, if we want to be successful, we need to reach out to other people that know what they're doing to help guide us. And I will admit I learned that a little bit the hard way when I opened my practice. I look back now and I'm like, dang, like I did well, but boy, if I would have had the wherewithal to reach out and pay people to help me a little bit that knew a little more about things, I probably would have been in a better place faster. But, I was young and I was like, I'm smart enough to figure this out. And I did figure it out, but I took the hard path instead of maybe a little bit easier path. And it's difficult to pay someone to help you with something when you don't have money to pay them for it. But again, like everybody is specialized in different things for a reason. And so it's important to reach out to those resources. ODs on finance, like there's a lot of free information on there. And so it's also about like knowing where to go to find that information. And then sometimes you have to, put your money where your mouth is and say, I need help and help me. And then it's going to come back as a return to you. And then it's one less thing that you have to worry about, but you can become successful so you can focus your energy maybe on something else.
Yeah. Well, I think if, in closing, if what I'm hearing from our discussion today that's just really encouraging is, don't wait, go for it. And maybe it's just the right time for somebody to hear it right now is like, it's time to start planning and making the change.
Yeah.
Uh, and, get to where you want to be and be happy with what you're doing. And, that doesn't mean that we don't have to work and we can't, put in, and there's times where we're working really hard because it's the right thing for our family, even if we don't love it. But that doesn't have to be your long-term goal. So make a
No.
plan.
Make a
Right.
plan, and I mean, for my own story, I am absolutely working more now than I was when I was full-time doctor and owner in Oregon, and I am
Uh,
so much happier for it. Like, it's crazy because I feel like I'm always
uh,
working, but I'm also always playing. Like, right before this podcast, I was at a PTO meeting for my kids' school, planning a school carnival, and I'm allowed to do that now because I have flexibility in my schedule
yeah,
because of the path that I've taken, and I never was able to go to volunteer for
yeah,
anything for my older son's school when I was seeing patients full time. Even though I own the clinic, I didn't allow myself time out of the clinic because I was afraid that my patients were going to miss out or, I wasn't going to pay my bills. And, I'm working more now, but I'm happier. My kids are happier. My husband's happier. And, we're 3 years into it now. So it wasn't all rainbows and sherbet and all the things right away, but with good planning and just I do say don't wait. I love that you said that. Like don't wait. If you're thinking
mhm,
about it, think it through, but you're never
yeah,
tomorrow is never promised. Tomorrow is never
that's
promised.
right.
So plan today and execute.
Yeah, yeah. Dr. Dunn, this is awesome. Thank you for the encouragement. There's things that are looming for my practice that it's like we got to get this in place, and so it's always good to be a change agent and look to how we can pivot. So thank you for coming on the podcast and for sharing. Appreciate your perspectives.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a huge honor when you asked. So I'm
Uh,
happy and hopefully my story encourages somebody. And if anybody ever wants to reach out to me, I'm an open book. So thank you.
how should they find you? What would be the best way for people to reach out?
They can reach out to me through email. It's amber.gaddy@gmail.com, which is my maiden name. I'm on social media on Instagram and Facebook. But yeah, and I'm at optometry's meeting. I go to Washington D.C. I go to a lot of local meetings. So if you ever see me, I've been told I talk too much, too loud, and too often. So you usually, if I'm in the room, you can hear me, which I don't know if it's a good thing, but that's who I am.
Yes, and very approachable. So thank you. And thank you for joining us for this episode. Make sure to like and subscribe. We'll see you next time on The OI Show.